the Hadith collections are the chapters. And the reason for that is obviously, if the Prophet ﷺ told us what the Quran meant, who could ever say it meant anything else after that? Nobody would even attempt to say it meant something else. So the Prophet ﷺ, his life is a commentary of the Quran. His behavior is a commentary on the Quran. He did not tell us what things meant specifically, because one, it's in the Arabic language, and so people know what the Arabic language is. It's a preserved language. But you have to learn, the Imam As-Suyuti says, you must learn the Tafseer al-Zahir before you can begin to look at other meanings, possible meanings of the Quran. So you have to look at what the earliest people said, especially people like Ibn Abbas, Tarjuman al-Quran, Ikrimah. That gives you a basic meaning of the Quran. You have to learn a basic tafsir before you can go into it. And so he's saying you cannot comment with the aql, but it doesn't mean you cannot make commentary on Quran. The meanings of the Quran are endless. They will continue to be endless, but you have to do it with an understanding of what the naql says, so that you don't make a mistake. Because if you see, for instance, the talh in the Quran and mandud, I mentioned this the other day, that it's an acacia tree. So if just my knowledge of Arabic, I know that talh is acacia tree, and there's the Quran says talh, but in the Quran that's not the acacia tree, it's a banana. And how do we know that? Because that's what the Salaf told us. And they knew this Quran better than anybody did. And so you have to look what they said. So if they tell you it means this, then that's what it means. And Kanud is an example of that, where Ibn Abbas didn't know what it meant. And then he heard a Bedouin, and he understood what it meant from that. But that's transmitted down. Ka'ihn al-manfush. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu used to say kasuf al-manfush when he went to Iraq, because ihn was a Qurayshi word which meant dyed wool, whereas the other Arabs didn't use that. They just said suf and masbugh. If it was dyed, they would just call it. They didn't have a specific word. So ihn means dyed wool, and that comes through it's transmitted through these scholars. And then he says, وَرَفَعُهُ لِصَوْتِهِ عَلَيْهِمَا. This is another real big problem in the modern time. Raising the voice when the Quran is being recited or when the Hadith. Like, for instance, today, and it's a problem because, like, I got in the bus and the driver had the Quran radio on, and I asked him to turn it off, because either you listen to Quran or you can talk, but you can't do both. If the Quran is playing, and now they put it in restaurants, you go to these, the religious owners of the restaurants, and so they put Quran while people are eating and having conversations. It's unbelievable. Like, the early people would have never done anything like that. They would have never done anything like the Quran is background music or something. I mean, that would be like kufr for them to do that. So unfortunately, this is out of the ignorance that people don't know these rulings. But you cannot speak. You should not speak when the adhan is being recited. You should not speak when the Prophet ﷺ, when the adhan was right, they said that it's as if we didn't know him. Because that's nida'ullah. It's God calling. Imagine your father is calling you, and you're just sitting there ignoring his call and continuing on in your conversation. You would run to your father if he called you. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَسَعُوا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَذَرُوا الْبِيعَ. Right? يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمُعَةِ. When the salah is called, فَسَعُوا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Just sa'i is to go fast. Sa'a, to go fast. Go quickly to the dhikr of Allah and leave whatever's preoccupying you. In this case, bay'at, which is prohibited once Jummah starts. You can't have any transaction. So that's one of the things that people forget. Imam Malik radiallahu anhu said that his hurma sallallahu alayhi wa sallam during his lifetime is the same as it is after he leaves this realm that we're in now. Once the Prophet ﷺ transitioned into the barzakh, his hurma is the same. And so Imam Malik, he was quoting a hadith while he was quoting that hadith. So if somebody is quoting a hadith, you should stop. Now we have to have dinner and quoting hadith. Imam Malik was once walking with a man, and he said, the man asked him about a hadith, and he said, Kuntu arba'u bika, I used you. He said, I never thought you'd ask about a hadith while we were walking. This is our time. Allah put us in this time, but really, because this is why they were so elevated. This is why they created the civilizations that they created, because they were those type of people. They were very serious people. And the Imam Malik, one of the things now people teach fiqh, and people they say, what's your dalil? Like you tell them a hukm, you say, that wudu has 7 fara'id. Wudu has 7 obligations. And then somebody will say, what's your dalil, brother? In other words, what's the ayah or the hadith that you get that from? Imam Malik never taught hadith with fiqh. And you can read the Mudawwana from beginning to end. You will rarely find any hadith in there, because he had a separate majlis for hadith. When he did the hadith, he would take ghusl. He would put on new, clean clothes that had been washed before that. He would make bakhur. He would put the aloes wood in the majlis, and then he would come and sit, and he would give the hadith. And when he finished, that was the end of the majlis. When he taught fiqh, it was a different day, separate thing. Fiqh and hadith were not put together, because the hadith was such a high thing to them. They really exalted the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. It's recorded, Qadi Iyad mentions this in the Tartib al-Madarik, that Imam Malik was bit several times by a scorpion, and people saw it. And they were in such awe in his majlis. He was called Amir al-Mu'mineen fil Hadith, because it was like being in the presence of an Amir. People did not talk in his majlis. They were very, very sensitive about this. Some ulama, people are different. But Imam Malik had a very strong haiba. He was Umari in his nature. And he had a very strong, awe-inspiring presence. But he got bit by a scorpion and he didn't move. And nobody could do anything. And then afterwards, somebody went to him when they finished the majlis, and he said, I saw what happened. And he said, you should have just left, you could have stopped. And he said, صَبَرْتُ هَيْبَةٍ لِحَدِيثِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. I was patient out of my awe for the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. They said that his color used to change when the Prophet ﷺ's name was mentioned. The color of his face changed. These people really, so this is what he's saying. This is what he's talking about. Don't raise your voice if the Imam is reciting Quran after the Jum'ah. Why are you having a conversation right next to فَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ? Allah says that time passed and their hearts became hard. This had no effect on them. And then they end up going out. They just become something else. So this is really important about this thing. وَالذِّكْرُ بِالْمَأْثُورِ فِي حُكْمِهِمَا. And also dhikr, when you do bihamdihi subhanallah al-azim, also dhikr should be done with tajweed. People do awrad and things like that. You should do the awrad with tajweed. And you should also do the dhikr as it was given to us by the Prophet ﷺ. You should not change it. The hadith can be transmitted in meaning, some of them, not the Jawami' al-Karam, he'll get to that. But the dhikr that comes down should be said the way that it's taught. And also when it has the same hukm of the Quran and the hadith, the dhikr bil-ma'thur. راوي أحاديث جوامع الكلم أو التعبد بمعناها أثم. So the one who is reciting the Jawami al-Kalam, and these are the hadiths like لا ضرر ولا ضرار. That's a it's a comprehensive word. The Prophet ﷺ said things like, ad-deenun nasiha. Religion is, nasiha can mean sincerity, it can mean good counsel, it means different things. It's a comprehensive word itself. That hadith, you could do a whole book just on 2 words, and Sidi Ahmed Zarruq did a whole book on that. You can do a whole book on كلمتان خفيفتان على اللسان ثقيلتان في الميزان سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم. These are light words on the tongue, heavy words in the scale. These, the Jawami' al-Kalim, are those things that the Prophet ﷺ related that have these meanings. So, and also those things that are for ta'abbud, like Sayyid al-Istighfar. There's a Sayyid al-Istighfar, Allahumma inni as'aluka, also Allahumma inni as'aluka min fuja'at al-khayri wa a'udhu bika min fuja'at al-sharri. These are things for ta'abbud, and so you should recite them appropriately. And if you don't, and if you recite them with their meaning, then it's sinful. في الغير للدار بمدلولات الألفاظ أن يروي بالمعنات. So he's saying, but other than those, for the one who's dari, yadri, he knows the meanings of words. So if you have hadith that, one thing I noticed about Shaykh Abdullah bin Daya, because I've translated for him for several years now, he mashallah, he memorizes. I was once translating for him, and he related a hadith. He'll relate a hadith with meaning. I've just seen him do this many times. He doesn't give the exact thing, he just gives a meaning. And he related a hadith once, and he said, هذا من طرف الحديث, it's just part of the hadith. And then when we were, after we went back, and I was in the room with him, and I said, سيدي الحديث ذكرته من صحيح مسلم. قال نعم. قال ايش الحديث؟ قال طويل. He said it's a long hadith, I said ممكن نسمعه. He went maybe 2 pages just from his memory. So he could do that if he wants, but he doesn't. He takes what he needs. What's the, like the doctor, he just takes what he needs for that specific situation and does that.